Fallout 76 looks every bit the multiplayer survival sandbox we expect it to be. But there's just one problem. Bethesda director Todd Howard is very keen to avoid the word survival when it comes to his game.
Fallout 76 was announced back in May, and Bethesda then fully lifted the lid at E3 a week or two later. It's an always online multiplayer game set in the same kind of Fallout setting, using a modified version of the same engine that powers Fallout 4 that we know and love. The game features an open world 4 times the size of Fallout 4, taking place in a post-apocalyptic version of West Virginia in the year 2102. It's due out on PC, PS4 and Xbox One on November the 14th. Fallout 76 is Bethesda Game Studios' first real foray into a serious fully online game. The Elder Scrolls Online is made by another studio, ZeniMax Studios, and that's pretty much what has dominated the conversation around the game. Players can play alone, but they can also team up with up to 3 friends, and they'll encounter other players out in the open world. In fact, all human characters they encounter will be another player. There are no human NPCs in the game. Some fans aren't too keen on the thought of sharing their Bethesda RPG experience with other people, while others quite like the sound of teaming up for some multiplayer in that kind of first-person open world. But one thing that pretty much everyone does agree on is what the game looks like. It's a post-apocalyptic, multiplayer, survival game. Only it isn't, at least not according to Todd Howard.
In an interview published by The Guardian this week, Todd Howard explained why he's keen to avoid the word survival altogether when talking about Fallout 76. Quote, "We avoid the word survival because people's minds immediately go to DayZ and Rust and certain other games. And those comparisons are not really accurate for what we're doing. If you think about survival modes we've made in Fallout 4, it has that vibe. Fallout 76, although it's an online game when I play it, I mostly still play solo. We like those experiences as much as our fans do. A key factor in this is how that survival game archetype allows and often encourages players to kill each other on sight, with high-powered, highly experienced players easily able to take out newer players and steal all their stuff. But that kind of thing is what Howard wants to avoid with Fallout 76. Talking to The Guardian again, quote, "No, that's not fun. Well, it's fun for whoever killed you, but not for you. Death is already bad enough in a game because you're losing time. That we didn't feel we needed to add any further penalty. We wanted to make sure you don't lose your progression. Footage the studio has put out of the game shows this kind of thing in action, but we do know that PvP in Fallout 76 won't be available to players under level 5, giving newcomers at least some kind of buffer."
Yeah, so it's interesting that he wants to make that differentiation, because the survival thing is, that is a word I would chuck into the mix with Fallout, because like he's pointed out there are survival modes in previous games, and maybe it is more of an RPG than a survival game, but there's undoubtedly survival elements in there, and it is something that is part of the series. He's saying that he doesn't want to use the word survival because it makes people think of Rust and DayZ and that kind of thing, which is a massively saturated genre on Steam. So I can see where he's coming from.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to look like part of that crowd, but at the same time, basically is what it is, isn't it? There's a bit of survival in there.
I mean, there's so many survival games. You could kind of... Hardcore survival would be more apt for Rust and DayZ or something, where when you die, you kind of lose pretty much everything, right?
Yeah.
Whereas this is different, right? It's survival to the point where you're trying to survive, but when you die, you don't lose all your shit, and that's what he's trying to get across here. It's really important right now for him going into the 4 months leading up to his game, that people understand what the game's about without short of showing the gameplay off, which he's not doing at the moment. He needs people to understand that it is this kind of thing, it isn't that kind of thing, but there's just not enough words in the vocabulary to split between softcore survival and hardcore survival.
The thing is that you've added the word multiplayer into the mix now. It's fine when it's single player, no one's thinking about it. But then as soon as you say multiplayer open world survival, I guess that does conjure up a different set of, a different image for you. But I guess all this does take us back to the same question that's hovered over this game since its reveal as a multiplayer online-only title. Why bother running the risk of looking like or sounding like Rust or DayZ by making Fallout 76 an online game with PvP in the first place? Why make Fallout 76 an online game at all? Well, here's what Howard says, quote, "I usually find in our games the best moments aren't the ones that we designed. They're when you're out in the open world and different systems collide. Putting that power in the hands of the players exponentially increases the number of different magic moments that can happen in the game. Some other games out there have done a little bit of that, but not in the way that we wanted to do it. Fallout 76 is a mix of what you'd expect of us. There's an open world with our kinds of quests, and you do have a goal. But then you don't know what's going to happen when you run into somebody else. That interested us greatly from a design mood standpoint. And the big one, something we've already heard before, but Howard was spreading the message again. Is Fallout 76 going to be what Fallout is forever now? Is it an online game? Quote, it's clearly not. It's definitely its own thing. That's firm words there. That's as clear as it gets, I guess, that this Fallout 76 is a spin-off, a kind of side project, I guess, for an online thing, just a foray into something else. And they will still be making single-player Bethesda-style RPGs as we know and love. With Fallout in the future.
I mean, I've got to be honest, when I first heard about Fallout 76 being online, I was very disappointed because I love Fallout and I love the times that I've had playing Fallout in the past, and having that multiplayer random element, getting ganked or whatever, and that in there, it just didn't appeal to me. But actually, the more I hear Todd Howard talk and the more that he kind of reassures me, because he is quite reassuring in what he says, the more I'm thinking I'll probably enjoy this game, teaming up with a group of players in the Fallout setting that I'm familiar with and that I pretty much love at this point. It appeals to me more and more, and what gets me and what kind of persuades me is the way that he talks about it, the way that he says things like, oh, this is what we did because we appreciate that from a design mood standpoint. It's like the way that they're thinking about the game is not just like they're just throwing out random elements in there. They're really, really considering carefully what they're throwing in there in terms of the balance of games, how to avoid players from feeling like they're just getting ganged up on or whatever, and all the shit's getting like all those balancing issues, and the way that they're talking about how they're balancing the game really, really critically. Those are the things that fill me with the most confidence, I think.
It has been something that they've been working on for a while. They said that this was actually a prototype concept kind of thing for Fallout 4. They didn't actually get it working, but it was one of the ideas that they were thinking about at the time. They've been developing this or at least started development on it before Fallout 4 came out, and it is something that they've been planning for a while. I personally am not averse to a live online game anyway, and I if there's one thing that bothers me a lot more than multiplayer, it's just saturation and repetition and getting loads of the same thing. So if this just means that this is another different thing that they're working on, and I'll one day get a Fallout 5 in a few years' time, that's fine. I'm cool with that, and I would take that over an annual Fallout game every single year, because that would piss me off. I just wouldn't be interested in this. So I'm all pretty much on board for it. I wouldn't say it's one of my most anticipated titles or anything like that, but I'm just going to keep an eye on it, see how it goes. I like what he's kind of saying. I like the fact that there are protections in there, like you said, and the way that they've thought about it, and that he's saying I'm playing it on my own. That does feel a bit like a PR line or whatever, but at least he's acknowledging that some people want to play it solo and that there is that possibility for them if they want it, which, there you go. If you want to play it single player, then you can't. Otherwise, just wait for Fallout 5.
So does Fallout 76 sound like a survival game to you? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Like the video if you've enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new around here, check out more of our content on your screen there. Support us on Patreon using that link right there. We'll see you again in the next video. Until then, bye for now.